Hello, let me check in with the first 40% of One Day Will Be Dead and None of This Will Matter by Sachi Cole, a 2017 collection of autobiographical memoir and memoir essays. I'm assuming they're all going to be that. They have been so far. Sachi Cole is a Canadian journalist whose parents are from India. She was born and raised in Calgary, lives in Toronto, and I think New York at the moment. Yeah, these are it's funny coming from the Ashes, Jesse Thistle's memoir, to this, because it's like, well, fuck, anyone coming from, holding up anyone next to Jesse Thistle is like, that's a tough road to hoe. She is someone who's obviously had a very kind of middle class Canadian existence. Definitely suffering from that subtle, quiet racism of Canada, all pervasive racism of Canada. But, you know, obviously trucking through things, getting a university career. I know she ends up working for Penguin Random House Canada, where I think she was employed when she got her book accepted by the company for publishing. She worked for BuzzFeed, so she is of a certain class, yet, is still someone, is a woman of color. A woman of color who is not a skinny twig in our thing, so definitely gets to suffer, gets to experience all the joys and fun of being a woman of color who isn't a twig in our society. She has interesting things to say, about that, about going back to India, where it's because of the lightness of her skin. She is Kashmiri, very upper, I think it's uppercase. She's basically a kind of white person there, like she's the top of the rung there, with that kind of, that very valued post-colonial white-ish skin. The whiter you are in India, the higher case you are, the more better treated you are there. Whereas she comes back to Canada, and as a woman of color, she gets treated like shit. However, she does note, but I'm also very lighter skinned here, so a lot of people are they're happy to employ me where they wouldn't employ someone who is more darker skinned, because they can tick off a box of having a woman of color, but not having a woman of color who's too much of a woman of color that isn't going to make them feel weird about stuff. So, it's not the harrowing drug addiction, really heavy fucking history of Native peoples in Canada, but it's still, I think, a very valid and interesting perspective to hear about. And she is a smart, witty person talking about that. Especially affecting is her niece Raisin, who has a white mother and is that much more kind of light-skinned, is like basically very light-skinned with some lineaments of kind of Indian ancestry, and maybe her nose and stuff like that. But she's got like blue eyes, and it's one of these things of her parents were so thrilled to have a grandchild that was so light-skinned and had those eyes, and she's like, she half kind of resented her in a way, because it's like, those are the fucking eyes that I wish I could have had, with all the kind of the internalized racism and the mean fuckers at school, saying stuff to her. She also uses racial epithets in the book, but the ones that were hurled at her, that also get hurled at black people, which I think it's fair cop that you get to reference those, if they've been hurled at you and used to use you. And there's also the so there's all that. It's a I'm finding it a good book, if not as harrowing or as deep. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here of, like, you know, women's body issues. That's, you know, it's not groundbreaking stuff on that level. Even for me, who's someone who hasn't done lots of memoirs, this is, but you know, it's interesting to hear a memoir-ish essays of a woman in her 30s who's born in like 1990, where I was a young man already by that point. So it's interesting to hear of kind of someone who's come up, you know, probably, you know, as a young woman in the 2000s, and getting her perspective on that, and all the special hells, which are very relatable, and yet also I'm a white dude who has no fucking clue. So it's also, I should be listening to shit like this, listening to stuff like this. It's not shit. I should be listening to stuff like this and trying to let some of it seep into my thick skull. You know, it's pretty hard to get this stuff. But yeah, all right. I will leave it there for now. More videos later.